What do we mean when we talk about the in-between, the nexus of our lives, of our reality? So often when we look back at our lives, we look at the milestone moments, these plateaus and footprints that we leave behind as markers of our life's journey. That only makes up about 20 to 30%. The rest is defined and connected by the in-between. Everything that takes place in between. And this is where the art of the spiritual warrior comes in. We can develop the tools and the means to identify all these different elements in our world and become the alchemists of our lives, peering through the nexus and the prism of our multiverse and drawing forth all that we are into the present now. Good day. Hello. Welcome back, everybody, to the Wolf's Den. You know, I'm making wolf noises because we're in the Wolf's Den, but earlier I was singing duck songs, and it's, you know, one of my things. And what I mean by duck songs is the DuckTales theme and the Darkwing Duck theme. Anyone who grew up in 90s era, you know what I'm talking about. Those theme songs are just incredible. Coming off of our last call last week, talking about inner child stuff. Oh my goodness, those songs, the DuckTales theme. Oh, the horns, the saxophone in that song, it gets me every single time. I listen to it once and it's on repeat, just going. And then I was singing my other duck song, the Darkwing Duck song. When there's trouble, you call DW. Just the melodies that get me so good. So I'm feeling good. We're having a good day. We're having a good Friday so far. Speaking of another good song just popped into my head, the Captain Planet theme song. Woo! If you listened to that growing up, you cared about polluting. You cared about the environment because you didn't want to be one of the bad guys that he would put to sunder. That's the words they use. Bad guys who like to loot and plunder. Oh, so good. It's so good. Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about, first off, I want to get back to one of the viewers, Carmela, our wonderful Cured by Cannabis. If you're listening, I did get your message. Thank you so much. I was meaning to reply before the show. I just got kind of caught up with stuff. And actually, what she did, she messaged me privately about just connecting a little bit more, how some of the calls and some of the shows have been resonating with her. And it inspired me to talk a little bit about the topic at hand, which is going to be divine masculinity and divine femininity. These are incredible topics that in this current day and age, it's so important that we get back to the roots of what these things mean, because currently the most often terminologies that we hear with femininity or masculinity is associated with toxicity. And I really try to avoid using toxic terms in any sense. I look at it as wounded, like there was a wounded masculinity that created that response, or a wounded femininity. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you can have wounded femininity if you're a man. That's a absolutely real thing. And it affects your balance with your internal masculinity if your femininity is wounded. And what I mean by this is that polarity within ourselves of the action and the nurturing, right? The light and the dark, because that dark, when we're in the darkness, when we're in the yin, we want to be in a place of solitude. We need to be in that place of silence, of just oneness with ourselves. And so often the teachings or the conditioning that we've been given, the filter of how we look at darkness, how we perceive darkness, has been negative. We think that's where all the evil stuff hides. This is where all the bad things are, is in the dark. When in essence, it's truly the origins of creation. Everything stems from no-thingness, from pure darkness, because from the dark is when a light truly shines. There's even that adage of darkness doesn't exist. It's simply the absence of light, meaning that darkness is simply the essence of origin for it to exist, there has to be no existence. And at the same time, it's almost like the chicken and the egg scenario, right? It's an incredible paradox to start to work our way into, because when we get to that point of acceptance of it being the birth of the origin of all things, which is again why it's embodied by the feminine presence, because it gives birth to all things. It is the originator of all things. That balance within ourselves, when we look at it from that point, when we go into the dark periods of our lives, even the nights of the dark soul, doing shadow work, things like this, they don't have to be negative. We can look at it as saying, I'm birthing a brand new version of myself, and I'm going into the dark in order to find that solitude, that peace within myself. Because the other aspect of that feminine draw is that nurturing, that caring, that ability to look after the immediate environment that the feminine energy finds an attachment to. There is an incredible association that feminine energy has with their environment that men have an ability to disassociate with to a degree. We have the ability to associate, but that masculine energy has a selective association, meaning we can shut it off. We can shut certain things off, because sometimes maybe we have to hack down that tree, or maybe we have to hack down that person who's trying to burn our home down. There's certain points where, as that masculine action of getting it done has to shut off that associativeness, the feminine energy is constantly associated to the environment. So going into that darkness means that solitude is healing. We can find a presence within ourselves. We are simply there within ourselves to give birth to something new, to give origins to something new. There's also that really important aspect of the feminine nurturing that comes with being able to multiply the space and enhance the space of the environment. One of the reasons of having that birthing capability of the feminine, of the woman, is to multiply what she is given. If you give her a house, she turns it into a home. You give her a man, or a husband, she turns him into a man, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. But the balance is there, right? There's just this aspect of, you give her that man, the true essence of a man, she will give you new life. There's that ability to multiply what she is associated with. And that's a powerful energy, very, very powerful energy. When it's wounded, there is my personal observations, because again, as a man, as a masculine energy carrier, I cannot speak for women ever. I can never say I know what women go through. I can feel what is being expressed to me, what I observe, and I can get a general feeling for things. I can have an awareness, I can have a comprehension of things, but I can never say that I have the experience, or I know what that experience is, because I just don't. There are instinctual responses as a man that I just do not fall into alignment with, that women do. This is my understanding of it. This has been my whole experience. So that being said, from the wounded aspect, from what I've seen, there's a massive amount of guardianship. So when the wounded natural alignment or polarity of oneself is in that state, the balance of the energy, because things are naturally connected. The feminine is connected to the masculine, the yin is connected to the yang, light to the dark. If one is wounded, the other overcompensates, because there is an imbalance between the polarity of the duality. So wounded feminine energy shows up in a over masculine presence, where I don't even want to just link it to how we see things as independence or achievement, because by all means, go do whatever you feel is part of achieving who you are. That's just being authentic to who you are. But there is a certain level of wielding a sword is kind of the metaphor that I go back to over and over, where the wounded part of that feminine polarity of the balance within the woman, the wounds created scenario after scenario after scenario where she constantly had to fight her way out over and over again, whether it was a relationship, a job, a commitment of some kind, an oppression of over attention or not being heard, not getting enough attention. There are so many different experiences that they would go through, and each time, scenario after scenario, they would feel like they constantly had to fight their way out, pull out that sword and find a way through. So that became, situation after situation, the conditioning, and it became the autopilot, the autonomous response to just things. And until that feminine wound gets healed, that sword keeps coming out and the battles keep coming up, and she will never actually be able to see when that true sovereign warrior of a man, king of a man, shows up, because she's too on guard. She's fighting the whole time. And to be honest, a true king will not waste his energy trying to prove that to anyone. He's already proven it to himself. That was all that mattered to him. That was how he claimed his sovereignty. So when that guard is up, it's not that he won't try to put an effort or maybe be, chivalrous right off the bat, but eventually that's a wall, because the guard is up, the shield goes up, sword comes out. He's not looking for a fight, not against the one aspect, that one condition of his life that's supposed to nurture, that's supposed to multiply, that is supposed to make him more of a man than what he was without that relationship. He's looking for something to make him greater than himself, and then offer all that he is and all that he constantly garners back into it, because it's a symbiotic feed. He understands that the only reason he's able to achieve those heights is because of what he's receiving from that dynamic, which makes him want to provide more, to continue to soar and feed this incredible symbiosis between the two. So when the feminine gets healed and she's able to sheath the sword, put it back in its holster, when that man shows up, she's able to put it away because she understands he will be at the ready anytime that is necessary. He will pull out his sword, not because she's incapable. My God, the reason that he was drawn to her is because she's capable of that. But he's showing her that she is so worthy of him putting that energy in, of him exerting himself in that way, of showing a level of commitment and dedication to her, to the dynamic that makes him feel like he can conquer anything. So he will, in turn, with that energy, conquer anything. It's an incredible dynamic when we can find that balance. Now, in turn, we've got the masculine draw. Now, again, I can only say that whole description is just from observation, right? I can't actually speak from the experience of a woman. In this instance, I can speak from certain experiences, and I can speak from relation to certain experiences of either having been witness very closely to certain behaviors, or having been faced with that crossroad myself and had to make those decisions in my world. Before we start, I'm going to have a little sip of coffee, though, because it's rated that temperature that if I don't start drinking it now, it's going to get cold. I don't like hot coffee that's gone cold after. Cold brew is different than hot coffee gone cold. It's very, very different. Hot coffee gone cold is not good to me. I love when it gets to that, just that right temperature. It's not burning, but it's just like that nice heat up your throat the whole time. And now I just chug it. I'm a coffee chugger when it gets to that perfect temperature. So please excuse me. Okay, let's get back to it. Men, masculinity. Okay, so divine masculinity, when it's at its peak, inconquerable, absolutely inconquerable. And what I mean by that is it's not, we can't look at it as emperors or wars and generals fighting each other. What I mean by unconquerable is a mountain doesn't tell you that you can't push it over. It just stands present as the mountain that it is. That's unconquerable, 100%. When a true divine masculine steps into that peak of that essence, there is no situation that he feels he will not be able to handle, that he won't figure out. This doesn't mean that he won't get, those emotions that get stirred up. Hell, we're supposed to get emotions. That's why we're here. This is part of the human experience, the third dimensional experience. But there is never a situation that he feels he cannot figure out a way, especially when, again, he's got that homestead, he's got that energy from that divine feminine feeding him, showing him levels within himself that he didn't know he had the capacity to reach. It makes him want to push past any type of barricade or imposition that may show up in his way. He becomes aware with the balance of his emotions as well, where when he needs to go and find a way of conquering a battle, winning a fight, of overcoming those obstacles, again, not saying that he won't feel the emotions, he has a way of mitigating those emotions, being able to feel them while understanding the reflection it has in his world. Because as an action taker, as a builder, everything we do impacts the environment. If I hit the hammer into the wall, it's going to leave a hole. Everything that we do impacts the environment as builders, as action takers. That environment, again, is incredibly associated to the feminine energy. So when we have those impacts, it's affecting not only the women and the feminine in our world, but our internal feminine. Because how those actions are taken, the awareness that's taken behind those actions, shows the balance of femininity within the divine masculine. Excuse me, coffee makes me burp. How he's able to balance and nurture himself, excuse me, loving himself so deeply on all aspects and having an awareness of himself on all aspects, that he knows the power of his emotions. He knows how to mitigate them and regulate them. There's a few different imbalances that come in with a wounded masculine. Again, knowing that when an imbalance takes place, there's usually a counterbalance of an over exertion of the other energy, an overcompensation. That over feminine energy shows up as very passive, that's when a man becomes a doormat. That's when a man puts any signs of standing up for himself in his world, holding standards, holding people accountable, because he's not holding himself accountable, so he can't hold anybody else accountable. That's that wounded masculine that's showing up as the over feminine, because he's too over associated with everything, with the words that are coming at him, with the overwhelming feeling of the environment. He's too associated, he's not compartmentalizing, and he's not feeling supported. Because again, going back to that divine masculine that nurtures himself, he knows how to regulate his emotions. He got to that point not only just because of accountability. That's step one. Absolutely, he has to be accountable for himself first and foremost. But it also comes from the support of when he expresses himself, because so often there's the commonality and really just generalized story that a lot of men carry of when they express themselves, they're either not heard, they're mocked, or it gets thrown back in their face, used against them as a weapon at some point or another. And honestly, I've experienced all three of those. 100% I've experienced all three of those. I have also experienced being heard. And it's in certain dynamics, not in all dynamics, but I have experienced being heard, being appreciated and respected for how I've opened up, because it shows levels of awareness and regulation that most men don't even have the capacity or the comprehension of. When it gets thrown back against us and used as a weapon, when we're mocked for it, when we're not heard, it really just makes us go, why? Why do I even bother? Why am I taking this action? It's wasted energy into trying to build something and take action in something that is showing no recourse of action at all, except negative, breaking us down. And there was actually I think it was a song lyric that I heard recently of, he's the man, or sorry, he's the rock in her world that, something along these, he was the rock that she needed, but she chipped away at his love like she wanted it to break. And when I heard that, and I'm paraphrasing, that's not, the exact, it's not verbatim, but when I heard it, it just resonated with me from those times of when it gets thrown back against us, when we're not, because when we go silent, when we're trying to step up and conquer again everything that comes into our world, and when we're sharing that space with our partner, we're conquering whatever is shared, whatever she needs conquering too. So we take on a lot of to-do actions when we need that expression, or when we go silent because we're going through it, chipping away or finding certain means of not being hurt. I'm mixing my sentence up. I'm sorry. When we get into scenarios of not being heard and we feel like we're being chipped away, and we're again at that space of conquering all these things in our world, it absolutely disheartens us and dismotivates us to do anything further. And it makes us feel like we're breaking inside, and we don't have the ability to open up the more that it keeps happening, because we know that it's going to be another chip in that rock until eventually we crumble. And we're doing our best to hold it together in all these other scenarios. So this is where an overcompensation of that passivity, he becomes a wounded man, where he is flat out effeminate, not feminine, effeminate, where he doesn't know how to step up and be present. And even when I'm saying effeminate, I don't mean like how we've seen mainstream portrayals of effeminate. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a complete and utter reversal of what should be masculine actions in scenarios, because it's not divine feminine either. The divine feminine has a balance with the masculine. So if effeminate, he's stepping up, and maybe emasculated is a better word than effeminate. He's stepping up as an emasculated man, which is just, having been there, it's a nasty place to be. You don't know what to do. You're constantly trying to please everything and put a band-aid over a boat leak, basically, on a, it just doesn't work. You're doing no favors for anybody. You just eventually got to go, you know what? This ship's either going to sink, or you got to give me my goddamn space and let me work. You got to be a man. You got to just put your foot down and do what needs to be done, and show that sovereign presence. You're not going to push me out of the way. You're not going to throw me over. I'm going to do what I need to do. And if I need to leave after that, I'll leave. No problem. But I'm going to do what I need to do. And you're going to understand that I need to do what I need to do, because it's not about me controlling. It's not about me being overly dominant. It's about me honing my space and my actions and my accountability, and refusing to let anything else show me otherwise after I've reached that space of I must accomplish this, I must provide this, following through with the action. That's that level of builder, right? But there's also another level of wounded masculine that comes in, and that's that. I would say it's again, it's an overcompensation of the feminine, but that feminine that comes in of the overcompensation is that wounded masculine feminine that we were talking about before, where the sword is up, the shield's up. And that's where being a man already, having that come in makes the hyper masculinity of that just this is where the toxic term masculinity comes in. That's where that asshole dude who's just overly cocky and loudmouth, beating his chest. I can do. It's such a shame to see that example out there, but it is what it is. This is also where abusive men come in, right? That really nasty abuse of all forms, not just physical, but the emotional and the mental controlling stuff as well. It's a very dark place to be on the balanced end, or imbalanced end, I should say, of wounded masculine. And again, being the action takers, we project that energy goes out in some form or another. There's going to be an action that energy is, or was fed by that energy, I should say. So there's a balance. How do we heal this stuff? How do we really heal this stuff? I can't, again, speak to the experience of women. I can say that I know some incredible women that have some wonderful programs and experiences. You should go check them out. Paula Hotwood is one of my very, very close friends, and she has been a divine healer and guide and inspiration for women in so many different forms of not just helping them become aware of their own femininity, healing the wounded aspects of their femininity, coming from, very, very similar experiences to what so many people have gone through. She also had the experience of being surrounded by men during her healing process. Divine masculine were showing up left, right, and center. All of her best friends, were showing up as divine men in her world. And she was able to get that incredible experience of really engaging and interacting with a man's and a masculine perspective through the questions that she was discovering as she was healing. And it's, again, just things that we can't speak to, being counterparts to each other. And that's the point. We're counterparts. We're not supposed to hold the entirety of the other. We're supposed to hold space to connect with that so we can expand and share that awareness with one another. So she has some incredible stuff that talks about, and she gets into programs. She has programs that get into the healing aspects, the instinctual and perspective aspects of femininity. For a man, I can really say that the biggest step for me was learning as much as I could and finding that it's a never-ending discovery, a journey of discovery about accountability. Accountability was the biggest game changer for me. When I started looking at accountability in my romantic life, my professional life, my home life, there is always, if we look for a reason, we're always going to find a reason. We're always going to find a way to justify why something happens, because that's what this is for. The brain and the human physical mind is meant to comprehend what's happening right now in the moment. And as soon as we find a way to do that, regardless of circumstances, we get to that point, we go, yep, I got it. It makes sense. So we find these ways to make these connections. I was doing that for the longest time, of finding ways to justify not being accountable. It was this reason, this person's fault, or this circumstance. And the universe is teaching me this lesson. As much as there may be influences of all these different elements, the only common denominator was me. That was it. I was the only thing that was linking all of these different reasons and excuses, and blah, 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 blah. And then eventually you run out of new stuff to say, and you're just recycling the same shit over and over and over again, and you can't figure out why the patterns won't break. Well, I've done this, I've done that. No, you haven't. You blamed this. You've blamed that. I'm speaking to myself here because that's all that I was doing was I was blaming this and blaming that and thinking because I was taking a new awareness to what was happening, I was doing work. I wasn't doing any fucking work. I shouldn't say that. Yeah, okay, learning stuff, but I wasn't doing the work I thought I was doing. So eventually, that accountability factor just put me into a place, or lack of accountability, put me into a place where I didn't see a point, you know? And I had gone through really dark spots in my life a number of times. And getting back to a similar point like this one again, when I was, Jesus, early 20s ish, and I kind of started learning a little bit more about metaphysics and things like that. I couldn't understand. And it was that confusion that was causing me the most stress, the most strife in my world. What cleared it up for me was when I started taking accountability. I stopped looking for all of these reasons and things to blame and ways to project the energy out. And when I stopped doing that and I just vortexed it in and I started channeling it inward, not blaming myself, but understanding I was the only thing that could do anything about this, right? So it take step by step, trial and error, figure out what it is that I'm in alignment with or out of alignment with, and act in accordance. That's all that it really boiled down to. Without having that obsession about projecting all of that energy and coming up with all these reasons, the confusion cleared up because I didn't need to look anymore. I didn't need to come up with all of these excuses at the end of the day or find an in-depth analysis on somebody or a situation as to why it turned out this way. It didn't matter anymore. I was taking the accountability for myself. So the reasons and the basic elements started to become a lot more clear. And then I understood with that accountability, those elements were more tangible at that point because it was on me. I could do something or I could not to, but either way, it's a choice. So that shift, regardless of speed of progression, that shift was the catalyst that really made the biggest change. And over time, it evolved, right? It's still evolving. My understanding of accountability, mainly because again, all of those elements, all of these circumstances that we want to be the reasons, those are going to change. They constantly shift throughout our entire lives. Nothing stays the same. We have the ability to shift through all of those never-ending circumstances and shifts of frequency and multiversal experiences and everything that life has to offer with a balanced presence because of that accountability. Because we're not looking at anything else other than inward, even knowing that we ourselves are going to change. That's part of the accountability. Because if we're anchored into just one perception and that concrete, I will never lose this mindset, we become very rigid. And any change that comes in that goes against that foundation is going to shake our foundation, as opposed to just being as tangible as the quantum around us and simply not looking at the quantum, but our space as we're going through it. And then we get to the eye of the storm, where we're a part of everything. We're witnessing everything, but we're not being swept away in everything. It's a beautiful, beautiful presence to take. That's where I found divine masculinity. And it really just, as it evolved, as circumstances changed and this and that, I just found different ways to apply myself, to take the reins, take the action necessary. And because I had gone through wounded states and actually growing up with a lot of just best friends as females, I had a lot of guy best friends as well, but I had a lot of female best friends too. That gave me a different perception, a different balance of the femininity within myself. So I was never one of just those asshole guys. Did I have my moments? Of course, everyone had their moments growing up. You're an adolescent, teenager, you're young adult, you're gonna have your damn moments. But I would have a different level of compassion for not just the circumstance, but also for myself. So it allowed me to step into the divine masculine in a more balanced approach, I feel. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm very, very thankful for that. So that's kind of been my journey with that. And what I found, again, because our wonderful Cured by Cannabis brought up this inspiration today, he wasn't the only person who's been talking to me about this. I've had somebody else approach me just recently, and we started up this discussion kind of randomly, but it just led into running programs and having groups and couple sessions and balances of wounded feminines and wounded masculine groups getting together, doing healing protocols, and then sharing an exchange of having facilitators, divine masculine or divine feminine facilitators, show up for the men, show up for the women, and offer that perspective of what it's like to be in the presence after they go through the healing. Because I got to be honest, when I hit divine masculine and I stopped responding so wounded in certain situations, like being rejected or turned down, or just feeling those moments of not being a man, again, completely forgetting it's not the circumstances that define me as a man, it's me and my actions. What I hit the point of now in this divine space, for example, if I'm online and I'm on one of the online dating things and just having conversations with people, it's not really going anywhere, just having conversations with people, when it leads to the point of them expressing, I just want to be friends first and figure out where it goes, or, I don't know if I'm really feeling it, or hell, not even getting a response in general. When I have offered back that really just, that's okay. Like, I need you to know there's no resentment. There's no, I'm not taking this personally. I want you to go forward with this, knowing that I actually support your decision. I want you to find whatever it is that you're in truly alignment with. And I wish you all the best. My blessings to you. There was like 8 to 9 times out of 10, the response I'm getting is, I don't normally get men that respond to me like that. That's what these women are saying to me. And I go, okay, I get that. But at the same time, like, it doesn't even happen occasionally. So I think it does happen at least occasionally. And if not, if I was the first, I hope that was a domino effect of it happening more, of those genuine divine responses, those truly healed masculine responses, because it's not about, I gave you attention, you feed me titties, I am man. It's so Neanderthalic, in my opinion, when it gets to the point of, this is a person that you're speaking to. This woman has her own mindset. She's allowed to make her own damn decisions. Forcing myself on anybody, forcing my emotions on anybody is outrageous to think that it's appropriate. So finding that true balance, it allows them to again get to that point of learning to put the sword away, learning to sheath the sword, because that man showing up, hey, I'm not here looking for a fight. I'm just feeling out the situation. I just want to be present. When you go to the mountains camping, you're just in the mountains. Hey, I'm just showing up. And if you like going to the mountains, you're going to keep going to the mountains, and the mountains will treat you well. You're going to get to your favorite spots. You're going to know your favorite spots. Mountain's going to treat you well. I promise you, it will provide everything you need. Damn, this analogy really kicked up a notch. I like it. That went some places. Anyways, this is kind of my spiel on how to heal the divine masculine. And we did start a little bit late today. I know we started a little bit late. We are still going to end up at 5 o'clock, just to respect everybody's time. We created the room a little bit later than we normally do, and we had to make sure that all the links were set up. But it also gave me some time to exchange with the lovely Tanya. So now that I'm done my spiel, let's quickly come check out some comments. Hello, Shay. Hello, Carmela. Hello, Cindy. Oh, Shay says it's Star Trek Voyager theme day today. Well, that's fantastic. I do enjoy Voyager. It's not my favorite of the series, but I do enjoy Voyager. It's weird. When I was growing up, Tuvok, I liked the name Tuvok. I thought it was a very powerful name. And the actor was great. He was a great actor for it. I was attracted to the female Klingon. I can't remember her name because, again, it's not one of my favorite series, but I was attracted to the female Klingon. Of course, number 7. Everyone was attracted to number 7. But the female Klingon, I had a little bit of a thing for. And then there was I liked the Doctor because I liked that actor, but I keep thinking, oh yeah, it was the Doctor of that series. It wasn't the Doctor, it was the chef or the cook or whatever that dude's name was. He was the alien with the orange hair and the freckles and all that stuff. When I was a kid, and this is a weird response that we do as humans, and we kind of go over this in boot camp. I'll explain in a second. When I would see him on screen, I would get the weirdest taste in my mouth. And I don't know why when I was a kid this would happen, but it had something to do with like the coloration of it. And when I would get like scabs on my skin that would look similar or remind me of that kind of makeup design, and like when they would stink, it would have this weird effect on me as a kid. So I avoided watching Voyager. I shouldn't say avoided watching Voyager because I did. I watched it as a kid. We watched all the Star Wars series when I was growing up on cable. But those moments when he would come on screen, I would just get this weird taste in my mouth. I can't really explain it. I don't even know what the taste was. I couldn't describe it. There's no relation to it. There's just weird taste. That's the best we're gonna get. Of course, Next Generation is like sure, everyone says the original Captain Kirk, blah blah blah. Picard, my man Picard, Riker, Data. Oh, Worf. Come on, man. That's come on. Deanna Troy, thank you. Dr. Crusher. Like, the casting in Next Gen was off the charts. They did a phenomenal job. I think a little bit had to do with the camaraderie that they had off camera as well. That camaraderie, when you build it up, that dynamic really close, it adds to the acting chemistry because it gives you this, speaking from some of the acting training I did, when you are really close with that person and like best friend kind of close, where you're already playing up on all these different emotions and certain things are gonna get them to laugh or shock value or whatever, you will give that type of energy back and forth to each other in the performances, and it just enhances it. And I know that the cast of Next Gen had that best friend dynamic to it, which even is kind of what we're talking about right now, the balance of dualities, right? Having all of these opposing personalities coming together in unison, in symphony with each other, wanting to provide and enhance and multiply this space. Oh, just poetic. Deep Space Nine. I have the theme song for Deep Space Nine is my absolute favorite. That song hits so good. Deep Space Nine is fantastic. And I I mean, it's an interesting dynamic because it was pretty much the first time where they didn't really do exploration of the traditional sense of they're on a ship and they're exploring the universe. They were at a station, they were, and all the actions happened on the station. It's not to say they never left the station. Of course, there was episodes where they left the station, but the main hub was on the space station. So it was a bit of a different dynamic, and it added a different flavor to the show. Um, Wow, we just went off on a Star Trek tangent here. Thanks for the comment, Shay. I mean, it adds filler time. What can I say? Star Trek's great. Star Trek's really good. I personally feel that that type of reality is 100% achievable with the technology that's literally already available. That not maybe necessarily to the generalized public, but I guarantee you, most of that level of technology is absolutely already been in development or has been developed without question. And I believe that type of reality is achievable. It really, really do. Where like the whole mandate, and this is where I love the next generation so much. The whole mandate is they weren't going out to interfere with anything. They were simply trying to gain knowledge. And if they were pulled into scenarios, they handled it with as much decorum and awareness as they possibly could for the respect of universal balance, right? Where there's no imposition on the generalized development of the universe and the civilizations and around them. This is such an incredible way of looking at becoming interstellar and interconnected between civilizations. Not to say that we become passive, because again, they were ready on hand if they had to fight and defend themselves, but they were never going out looking for war. They were never going out looking to conquer anything. They were simply ready and prepared to be unconquerable. So within how we can reach that, to me, it's a true harmony and a balance between the environmental perspectives and the technological perspectives. Because I know a lot of people have this mindset of thinking, get rid of all technology, it's all evil, it's terrible. And if we get rid of everything and start living in caves and tree houses again, everything's going to be fine and dandy. Well, I think that there's a level of value to having that connection with nature, without question. 100% there is. There's the way that nature speaks, the way that nature provides, and the fact that we're supposed to be stewards of this planet, that it's all important. It's all so valuable. Going back to living in the wild is not an evolutionary advancement. There's a reason that we moved out of it, and there's a reason why certain levels of conscious beings haven't. It's not to say that they are lesser. They stay in that frequency because the harmony there is everything in alignment with how they've shown up in that physical vessel. Humans are not meant to live in that dynamic, in that wild essence dynamic. We're capable of it. Of course we are. We're not really evolutionarily supposed to stay stationary in that space. There's a reason that when we look at it from where we are in our frequency, we see the struggle. We project our sentiment into the situations of watching a gazelle die at the hands of a leopard. We feel for the fact that a wild creature will spend all of its time finding a way to survive. That's its only priority. Finding food, finding water, finding shelter, finding a way to stay safe from predators. There is no way of living outside of that dynamic within that frequency. Humans don't live in that frequency. We have evolved our consciousness so far beyond that. And again, we project that onto the animals. When the wild creatures are in that frequency, they don't think in that same state. They just go from the one action to the other, to the other, to the other, because that's That's the dynamic of that frequency. So for us, finding the balance of that, and I don't feel the other end of the spectrum, the extreme end of that side, the entirely technological, is beneficial either. Relying only on machines, only on technology, that's a recipe for failure, because again, we lose that sense of accountability. We lose the entire power of understanding we are the creators and not the observers of our creations. And when we give everything over to technology, and eventually it gets to the point of the machines building the machines and advancing the machines, we have no input. There is zero accountability. We are no longer the creators, and we take a step back. So that's an evolutionary back step as well. Finding the balance between the two, finding that harmony of the technology that doesn't harm the environment, doesn't take away valuable resources, but is able to get to that depth and that alchemy with the infinite energy source that is available to us in the ether, and simply making it a influence or a tangible part of the physical mechanics that we're working with. That technology in harmony with how the natural course of creation and the universe evolutionary's development takes place. That's the next step. That's the next advancement. And that's Star Trek technology to me. That's Star Trek perspective, where we can have these things like the replicators, where they just, again, ether energy understands that everything is simply made of energy. Anything physical is made of tangible atoms that are simply vibrating and are structured in a certain way. So guaranteed, there's technology that can simply program those structures and those formulas into a way that will project those molecules and the energy so that it absolutely appears physically in that way, and it's going to be real. As real as whatever we thought is homegrown, because it's the same concept. It's just being made with technology rather than made with other physical molecules and other physical stuff that is already in existence. Because again, energy always exists. It's just, what form is it taking? And the fact that we can just streamline the process like that, I guarantee there's technology that can do that. Med beds. Look up Dr. Stephen Greer, and he's had documentaries and talks where he's discussed the capacity of these med beds, where they tap into the etherical energy of the physical body. Because again, this is just made up of formula of molecules, this and that. And if somebody loses a limb, that energy, the structure, that basically the vibration, the frequency, the vibratory state is an echo that constantly stays. And this is where people will get the phantom limb feelings if they lose an appendage of some kind. Oh, well, it feels like it's still there, because etherically it is. That resonance, that frequency that makes us who we are in the physical realm, is constantly in projection until we pull it back, until it goes all the way back through the filters and we do something else with it. It can't be destroyed. It can't be created into something else. It's simply, or recreated. No, I'm mincing my words. That energy can only ever change form. It can't be destroyed, right? So when we pull it back, it's simply being redistributed. That energy stays, that echo will stay, and these med beds are able to pick up on the echo. So they have been able to, I can't speak on this perfectly, but Dr. Stephen Greer said they have the technology to regrow these types of limbs. They have the technology to go inward on somebody, do surgery without ever making a cut of a scalpel. Like it's incredible stuff that is, I feel we're on the precipice of, which is so exciting. And the more and more that come, I cannot wait to get into the discussions of it as they're getting unveiled to me. Real quick, let's check the comments again here. Carmela, yeah. So see our Cured by Cannabis. She knows Miss Carmela. She knows Dr. Stephen Greer as well. Yes, Stephen Greer is fantastic. Look him up. Anybody who hasn't looked him up, go look him up. I think his documentaries, at least a few of them, are on Tubi, on the streaming channel Tubi. If not, just look him up. He has done some incredible work for the disclosure community. And retreats and CE5, which is Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is human initiated contact. Wonderful guy. Absolutely check him out. Carmela, yeah, watched him for over 7 years, she said. I've watched him for a number of years myself too. And I tell people all the time, look him up. He's incredible. Anyways, we are getting to the top of the hour here. I'm going to sign off, everybody. Oh, yes, Carmela, thank you for reminding me of that. He does have an app, everybody. Go look up his app. Is it CE5? No, Sirius? I believe it's Sirius, SIRIUS. I'm not 100% sure. But look up Dr. Stephen Greer's app. He's got apps. He's got CE5 apps, which show you other people in your immediate area that you can get together and do CE5 protocols, which he'll teach you how to do. And you basically do your own gathering of human initiated contact. And whoo, does he have some incredible stories, wonderful videos, and evidence to back up all of the work that he does. Yeah, Sirius is his website and his, I think his initiative as well, like his kind of company initiative, his organization initiative. Anyways, I'm getting off tangent here. We're going too far. Look up Dr. Stephen Greer. You guys are going to go and you be able to find all your info that you need to on him online. Other than that, see you guys next week. I'm looking forward to it. Woo! Have a great weekend, everybody.